Police knocked on the door after neighbors heard screaming. A pregnant woman answered, smiling, holding a toddler. Officers asked if everything was okay. She said yes. What they didn't know was that a 12-year-old girl had already been dead inside that building for weeks, and no one had bothered to ask where she was. Her name was Jacqueline Torres Garcia, and she had been dead for months. By the time they found her, sealed inside a plastic storage bin behind an abandoned house, the people who were supposed to love her most had already moved on. This is the story of how a child vanished in plain sight, while everyone was watching. Before we go any further, if you're someone who believes these stories need to be told, that victims like Jacqueline deserve to have their truth heard, then subscribe to Cold Case Crimes right now. Turn on notifications, because we don't just cover these cases, we honor them. We dig deeper. We ask the questions others won't. This is going to be a difficult journey, but if you stay with me until the end, I promise you'll understand why this case demands your attention. Let's begin. October 8, 2025, New Britain, Connecticut. An anonymous call comes into dispatch. The voice is distorted, hesitant. They report suspicious activity behind an abandoned home on East Street. When officers arrive, they find exactly what the caller described: a large plastic storage tote, roughly 3 feet long, 2 feet wide, sealed shut with duct tape. The kind of bin you'd use to store Christmas decorations, or old clothes, or things you want to forget about. But this bin wasn't storing memories. It was hiding one. Inside, wrapped in trash bags, layered with bed sheets and dusted with white powder to mask the smell, was the decomposed body of a child. 12 years old, female, later identified through dental records as Jacqueline Mimi Torres Garcia. Jacqueline was born in New Britain. She had dark curly hair, a bright smile. She liked to draw. She had friends at school. She was, by every measure, an ordinary kid living an ordinary life. Until she wasn't. On August 26, 2024, less than 2 months before investigators believe she died, Jacqueline's mother, Carla Garcia, walked into the school office and withdrew her daughter. The reason she gave: homeschooling. No one questioned it. No follow-up was required. The paperwork was filed. And from that moment on, Jacqueline Torres Garcia ceased to exist in the eyes of the world. No teacher saw her. No classmate asked about her. No family member demanded to see her. For over a year, this 12-year-old girl lived and died in total. But here's what makes this case so much worse. People did notice something was wrong. Neighbors in Carla Garcia's apartment building called 911 at least 6 times. They reported screaming, banging, the sound of something or someone being thrown against walls. One neighbor told police they heard a woman shout, "I will break your neck." Another reported hearing a child cry, followed by a loud thud, followed by Carla's voice yelling, "Stop, stop." Every time officers responded, every time they knocked on the door, and every time, Carla Garcia assured them everything was fine. Let's go back to that night, December 29th. Watch this footage closely, because knowing what we know now, every word, every gesture, every smile takes on a different meaning. The officer's body cam shows a dimly lit hallway, apartment 214. He knocks 3 times. The door opens. Carla Garcia stands there, pregnant belly visible beneath her oversized shirt. She's holding a 3-year-old child. Her hair is pulled back. She looks tired but calm. "Officer, hi, how are you?" "CARLA, good." "Officer, is everything okay?" "CARLA, yeah." "Officer, we got a call. There's a lot of noise coming from your apartment." "CARLA, they're always calling." She says it casually, almost annoyed, like this is just another inconvenience. "Officer, okay, everything's good though." "CARLA, yes." Officer, everyone's all right. Is everyone else home with you? Carla, just the Bobbies and my boyfriend. Look at her eyes. No panic, no fear, no guilt. The officer asks to speak with her boyfriend. Carla turns toward the apartment and calls out. Carla, babe, they just want to make sure everything's okay. Jonathan Nanita appears, 30 years old, tattoos on his arms. He nods at the officer, relaxed. Officer, you okay? Jonathan, yeah, my wife's pregnant, so she just be having mood swings and I'll be trying to calm her down. Officer, okay, things happen. Jonathan, I'm at the end, so it's difficult. He laughs, the officer laughs. They're bonding, two guys commiserating about the challenges of living with a pregnant woman. Meanwhile, if the timeline investigators later constructed is accurate, Jacqueline's body is decomposing in the basement, possibly just 10 feet below where they're standing. The officer wraps up. Officer, all right. Well, I won't keep you guys. I'm just going to write your names down, say I spoke with you, and get out of your hair, okay? Carla and Jonathan, okay. Officer, how long you guys been staying here? Carla, almost a year. Officer, things are good. Carla, yeah, sometimes the walls are, you live in apartments, walls are thin. Jonathan, they've been complaining since we first moved here. Officer, okay. Carla, we're actually moving. Yeah, to New Britain. Well, we came from New Britain. It's better over there because we don't have no complaints at all. Did you catch that? They're planning to move back to New Britain. And when they do, Jacqueline's body will be going with them. Officer, all right, Merry Christmas, guys. The door closes, the officers leave. The case is marked as unfounded. And Jacqueline remains hidden. According to the arrest warrant filed months later, Carla Garcia would eventually admit to investigators that on the night of December 29th, when police knocked on her door, she knew Jacqueline had been dead for weeks. She knew. And she said nothing. October 9th, 2025, one day after Jacqueline's body was discovered. New Britain detectives bring Carla Garcia in for questioning. At this point, they already have the tote, they already have the body. What they need now is the truth. They're not going to get it. When Detective Mordisitz first asks Carla where her daughter is, she doesn't hesitate. She's fine, she's visiting a friend. The detective presses, which friend? Carla says all her kids are supposed to be at her cousin's house on Dwight Street. But when police visit that address, the cousin says Carla's children were never there. The detective returns to the interrogation room. He tells Carla that her kids are actually with her sister, Jacqueline Garcia, on Kelsey Street. But one child is missing. Jacqueline Mimi Torres Garcia. Carla's reaction, as described in the affidavit, is telling. She acts surprised, repeatedly asks, "What do you mean?" She insists all her kids were supposed to be at Dwight Street. She confirms they were there when she left. But they weren't. And she knows it. That's when the detective shifts tactics. He tells Carla about the storage tote found behind the abandoned house on East Street. He tells her about the body inside. And he tells her no one has seen Jacqueline in over a year. Carla's story begins to crack. At first, she denies knowing anything about the tote. Then, she blames Jonathan. She says the last time she saw Jacqueline was 8 months earlier, sometime in February 2025, at their apartment in Farmington. She claims Jonathan didn't like Jacqueline because the girl made Carla depressed. She says Jacqueline was upset that Carla was pregnant with another child. And then, Carla tells a story so detailed, so vivid, that for a moment it almost sounds believable. She says that in October 2024, she and Jacqueline got into an argument on the stairs. And according to Carla, Jacqueline, This 12-year-old girl threw her down a flight of stairs. Carla claims she was 6 months pregnant at the time. She says Jonathan saw what happened and became enraged. He attacked Jacqueline, beat her, left her bleeding on the floor. Then, according to Carla, Jonathan picked Jacqueline up and threw her down a second set of stairs leading to the basement. Carla says Jacqueline was still moving, still bleeding. And then Jonathan told her he put Jacqueline in a bag and put salt on her. Carla insists she had nothing to do with it. She says she didn't report it because she was afraid Jonathan would kill her or her other children. It's a horrifying story. But there's just one problem. It's not true. On October 9th, the chief medical examiner completes the preliminary autopsy. The findings are unambiguous. No recent trauma, no broken bones, no signs of blunt force, no blood. What they do find is severe and prolonged malnourishment. Jacqueline Torres Garcia didn't die from being thrown down the stairs. She starved to death. When detectives confront Carla with this, her story changes again. Now she admits that when Jonathan stomped on Jacqueline's head, there was no blood. She says Jacqueline was still moving afterward. She claims she heard Jonathan drag Jacqueline away, heard a body being thrown down a flight of stairs, and heard Jacqueline crying. But when investigators show her the autopsy report, when they show her the photographs, Carla's facade collapses entirely. She begins to cry. And then she starts telling the truth. Carla admits that she applied zip ties to Jacqueline's wrists and ankles. Not once. Twice. She says Jonathan told her to do it. But then almost immediately, she goes further. We would mistreat Jacqueline together because she was bad. She didn't listen. She didn't respect us. According to Carla, Jacqueline was doing things she wasn't supposed to do. Like what? Striking other kids, going into people's cars, having 5 boyfriends. Jacqueline was 12 years old. Carla tells detectives that she and Jonathan stopped giving Jacqueline food for about 2 weeks before she died. She says Jacqueline died sometime in her bed, but she wasn't sure exactly when. She says Jonathan moved the body to the basement. The smell became unbearable. So they stayed in hotels, with friends, anywhere but home. And when they finally moved from Farmington to New Britain, Jonathan transported Jacqueline's body in the back of his truck like a piece of unwanted furniture. If you're still watching at this point, drop a comment with "I'm still here." Let's see who's truly following this story, because what I'm about to tell you next will show you just how calculating these people really were. While Carla was giving her evolving statements to police, Jonathan Nanita was telling his own version of events. Unlike Carla, who had to be tracked down, Jonathan actually approached investigators voluntarily. On October 8th, while detectives were canvassing Tremont Street in New Britain, Jonathan walked right up to them. According to the affidavit, he said he wanted to clear his name. He said he didn't do any of this. But within minutes, he admitted to moving the tote. He framed it as a favor. He said Carla contacted him and asked him to dispose of a tote that was outside her apartment building near the garbage. So he drove to her apartment at 24 Tremont Street in New Britain with his current girlfriend. Together, they loaded the tote into his truck. Following Carla's instructions, he drove to a nearby cemetery to hide it. The detective asked him a simple question. Who was in the bin? Jonathan shrugged. I haven't seen Jacqueline. The detective asked again. Did you know it was Jacqueline? Jonathan nodded. Yes. So let me make sure I understand this. You move a storage bin for your ex-girlfriend. You drive it to a cemetery. You know your ex-girlfriend's 12-year-old daughter is missing. The bin smells like death. And you claim you had no idea what was inside. Investigators didn't buy it either. Jonathan tried to shift the blame onto Carla. He told detectives that when he walked into the Farmington apartment one day, he saw blood all over the walls along the staircase. He said he asked Carla and her sister what happened. They told him they didn't know. He claimed Carla's sister, Jacqueline Garcia, and 4 of the kids were upstairs in a room. But little Jacqueline Torres Garcia was missing. Jonathan said he panicked and left the apartment without knowing what happened. The next day he returned. The blood was cleaned up, and he never saw Jacqueline again. He denied ever harming her. And he suggested, without saying it outright, that Carla was the one responsible. Then there's the aunt. Jacqueline Garcia, Carla's younger sister, 27 years old. She was arrested on October 8th, just hours after the body was discovered. Her first interview with police was conducted while she was, according to the affidavit, severely intoxicated. In that interview, she painted a picture of a normal, happy family. Everything was fine. Nothing was wrong. She didn't know anything. But the next day, when she sobered up, her story changed. She admitted she hadn't seen her niece in a long time. But she insisted she had just found out everything yesterday. Then another detective entered the room. He told Jacqueline that her sister Carla had already given a statement. And in that statement, Carla said Jacqueline, the aunt, was present for the abuse. Carla said Jacqueline took the photograph. The photograph of Mimi, 12 years old, restrained in zip ties, lying on pee pads. Jacqueline Garcia's defense crumbled. She confirmed that her niece was deprived of food and made to stand in the corner. She confirmed that Carla and Jonathan would zip-tie Mimi as punishment. She confirmed that they often kept her in the corner of the room where she would defecate and urinate on herself. She admitted to seeing Mimi zip-tied on a couple of occasions. She admitted that Mimi was always in the corner of the house. But she tried to minimize her involvement. She said, "I didn't come up with the idea to use zip ties. Jonathan did." As if witnessing torture makes you less guilty than ordering it. As of today, all 3 suspects remain in custody. Carla Garcia and Jonathan Nanita are each charged with murder with special circumstances, conspiracy to commit murder, risk of injury to a minor, unlawful restraint, intentional cruelty to a child, tampering with evidence. Jonathan faces an additional charge, violation of regulations regarding the disposition of a dead body. Both are being held on $5 million bond. Jacqueline Garcia, the aunt, is charged with cruelty to persons, unlawful restraint, reckless endangerment, and multiple counts of risk of injury to a child. She's being held on $1 million bond. All 3 are scheduled to appear in New Britain Superior Court on November 14th. But here's the question that haunts everyone who's followed this case. How did this happen? The Department of Children and Families had been involved with this family for years. They conducted home visits, they filed reports, they monitored the household. According to records, they even conducted a video check-in in early 2025. That was months after Jacqueline was already dead. So how does a state agency whose sole job is to protect children fail to notice that a 12-year-old girl has been missing for over a year? It wasn't just DCF. School officials were told Jacqueline was being homeschooled. No one followed up. Neighbors called 911 at least 6 times. Officers responded, but no one ever asked to see all the children in the home. Family members hadn't seen Jacqueline in months, but apparently that wasn't strange enough to warrant a visit. In the age of FaceTime, video calls, social media, how does a child just disappear? The answer is as simple as it is devastating. Because no one asked. Jacqueline Mimi Torres Garcia, was 12 years old when she died. She liked to draw, she had friends, she went to school, she was a normal kid. Until the day her mother decided she wasn't worth protecting anymore. The people who were supposed to love her starved her. The people who were supposed to keep her safe bound her with zip ties and left her in a corner to waste away. And when she finally died, alone, in pain, forgotten, they hid her body like she was trash. This case is a reminder that evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it hides behind a smile, behind a closed door, behind the phrase, "everything's fine." And sometimes, the people who could have saved a life never thought to ask the right questions. If you made it to the end of this story, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me, do you think the system failed Jacqueline? Could this have been prevented? What do you think should happen to the people responsible? And if you think this story was hard to believe, wait until you hear what we're covering next. Another case, another victim, another failure that never should have happened. Subscribe to Cold Case Crimes for more stories that demand to be told. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an upload. Because these cases aren't just about the past. They're about making sure it never happens again. I'm Cold Case Crimes. Thanks for watching. Rest in peace, Jacqueline.